Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of Aries season. This Aries season has its own set of nuances. Is it as absolutely insane as last year's? No. We aren't in between eclipses. There isn't a Mercury and Venus retrograde happening. But we do get to experience the separating Saturn Neptune conjunction, being conjunct the sun, being conjunct the other planets as they move into Aries. And so there is a sense of kind of destabilizing. Neptune might bring a little bit of delulu, which honestly might be helpful just in time to get pulled back short by Saturn. So just know that this is kind of the vibe and the energy of this season. We also are going to be entering in on the same day as Mercury station direct, which does kind of give a start and stop feeling to the season. Is the astrology a bit more smooth than last season? Yes, it is. Thank goodness. But we are still hitting some really impactful conjunctions with, especially with Neptune and Aries, never before seen in this lifetime energy, because we've never had a Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries in our lifetime, or a Neptune Venus conjunction, anyways. So because that's how long these cycles take. So a lot of this energy is new. A lot of this, even for astrologers, is like we know the vibe of it in general, but in a specific sign with this specific kind of setup. No, we haven't. And you could say, this is how it always happens, but this is kind of a major one, a major kind of moment of unknowing. And Neptune rules the unknown. So it's an extra little layer of like, we'll see where this goes. So we're about to experience that. We have at this point already experienced Venus hitting that conjunction, which was quite spicy and fun, if you were on the internet. But these are really important moments in the season, and they will happen one right after another as we enter into Aries season. So just a heads up. Like I said, there's that post retrograde shadow, which clears about the second week of April. So, well, not second week of April, last week of March. Sorry. For some reason, I was like, it starts at the beginning of the month. No. So, last week of March into the first week of April, we get the clear of that. But that does kind of not taint, because I don't think Mercury retrogrades taint things, but it definitely kind of, is we're still finishing up energy from last year. So, just be aware that that's where that's going. I can't wait until we don't have a Mercury retrograde at the beginning of the year, and that is coming next year. So buckle up. I think next year. Well, we might have the 50-50 ones, so it won't be happening exactly on the spring equinox. That I can promise you. Anyways, so we start off on the 20th of March, spring equinox. Sun goes into Aries. Yay, still having to deal with these things. I don't normally do aspects in these overviews, but because these are important, we have the Sun Neptune conjunction at 22 degrees, not 22 degrees. You can tell Mercury is still retrograde while I'm recording. On the 22nd, sorry folks, I'm not editing or redoing this. On the 22nd, and then we have the Saturn conjunction on the 25th with the Sun. So just know that it's kind of bang, 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 one right after the other. We're going to be hitting these fun aspects. I'll go into these more in depth in my other videos. It's not doom and gloom necessarily, but Neptune often is really big weather events. So we could see some big weather disasters happening. Just a heads up, Saturn shows the weakness of infrastructure. So I think you see how that can correlate. So just be aware that we're probably going to see, I don't do a lot of mundane astrology. I prefer to focus on more personal astrology, but just know we're going to see some the consequences of us destroying the planet, basically. Um, then, then this is really nice. On the 30th, we do get Venus into Taurus. So Venus is out of detriment and fall, which I honestly don't hate Venus in detriment or fall. Venus can be pretty chaotic when it's in domicile, and gets kind of pulled back a smidge when it's in Scorpio or Aries. But we do get a domicile Venus, which will be really nice, especially with us having a sextile domicile Saturn. I don't know if that was how exalted Jupiter. Don't know where that came from. Saturn's currently in fall and will be for the next 2 years. And so we get this really kind of beautiful, gentle, lovely spring energy right when we need it the most. And then that leads us into on the 2nd of April. This will be the 2nd if you're in CST or any other time towards the East Coast. PST, it'll be on the 1st still. But we have a full moon in Libra that is ruled by Venus. So honestly, a beautiful time, especially after the eclipses. We're starting to like get some benefic things. Now, there is a little bit, a little tiny bit of caveat. I know, devastating, right? Um, Venus is going to be sextile Jupiter, which is great, but the caveat is it'll be 3 degrees from square that full moon. So yes, very good. Great time for manifesting connection, harmony in your relationships and romance. However, because of that square with Jupiter, we have to do what's best for us. And the fact that the sun will be adjacent to Saturn, best for us in the long term. You will be asked what you truly want. And if you are wanting something that is more long term when it comes to romance, when it comes to stable friendships and family things, you will be asked to make decisions to kind of let go of comfort in the now for long term comfort. So, it's kind of a trade off. We have to do what is best for us. I'll go in more in depth, but I just want you to know that this is a great time to manifest relationships and stuff. Just know that Saturn is square. And so there's also a lot of questions about whether whether some of our preferences when it comes to love and connection and care, whether romantic or not, whether some of those are for our best interest, whether some of our preferences aren't trauma responses. And also a reminder that in times like these and in any time, but especially in times like these, you know, maybe don't be with someone who isolates you from community. Maybe don't be with friends who don't know how to connect with others. Maybe don't be with people who don't know how to include others in their lives. Important that you're not the only person in someone's life as a support group. Doesn't mean you should cut them off because you're the only person, but just kind of a bit of being like, hey, you cannot love in isolation. Also, for some people, this will be calling you out for trying to heal before you are with someone, and that's never going to happen. You don't heal from relationship trauma outside of a relationship, just as you don't, heal from anything outside of the context of your wounding. So that's going to be, I just, while it is very good and overall really benefic, it is not necessarily easy or simple. Doesn't make it bad, but also it's not going to be like, oh, yay, a perfectly happy moment, which I know we wish. But this is a beautiful time to connect. It also, because of the Venusian quality of these things, I do feel like there's a very distinctive tie between Pisces that, will have there'll be an exalted Venus square Saturn. Why do I keep saying Saturn? Square Jupiter on the day of that Pisces new moon. And then we will have this, the sun square with Jupiter on the full moon in Libra. So there is a very interesting thread. How I'm choosing to work with it, and this will also be in the video that'll make this longer, and I probably should get off this topic so I have actual content for that video. Um, you know, that connection, I would suggest doing a bunch of releasing rituals with the new moon in Pisces and kind of calling back in your soul and calling back in your energy. And then, it might seem counterintuitive because it's a full moon, but it is the first full moon of the zodiac year to call in, people. So calling in yourself for the Pisces new moon and then calling in others so that you can come home to yourself before you try to call other people in to come home to you. Moving on, I know that was a bit of a long explanation, but I do feel it's important if I'm going to say this is great to mention the parts that also aren't great. Then we have Mars entering into Aries on the 9th of April. Mars will be domicile, very spicy. It also means that we'll have the malefic conjunction, which always on the world stage tends to be pretty spicy, and now it's in Aries, so expect some bombastic news around this time. So, week of the 9th. It'll also have that Neptune conjunction, so not everything will be as it seems. However, what I'm noticing with Neptune and Aries is it's almost like a kid playing hide and seek. You know, when they're like 3 or 4 and they don't have object permanence yet and they don't understand hiding and they like hide behind a lamppost. That's kind of how Neptune and Aries is feeling, where you're like, I mean, they say we don't know what's going on, but I see that person standing there pretending like we can't see them. It remains to be seen, however. But this also is domicile energy. Is it a bit bombastic? Yes. Does it mean we will get things done? Also, yes. So if you've been feeling, especially the kind of resistance of the energy, especially the past season, Pisces season, this is when things start to move on the 14th. This is when progress gets to be made. This is when we can shift our direction and move forward. Now, what this also means is that Aries new moon has a domicile ruler, which chef's kiss, extra spicy, yes. It also doesn't really have any aspects to anything else in the sky except for Chiron, which isn't bad. And also, this is, to me, Chiron will move into Taurus later this year. This also is, to me, the kind of moment where a lot of our Chiron lessons come home to roost, where a lot of the work we've done around trauma and healing and honestly cutting a lot of people off for some of us, is really going to get moving. Is we're really going to be like, oh, all that time we spent with, Chiron and Aries, I'm starting to see how this has molded me and shaped me as a person. I'm starting to see the toolkit that it is leaving me with as it goes into Taurus. So, will we have to face our pain? Yes. However, if you've already been doing it, then it's not so bad. Also, this is a new moon, so this is also a time to reassert and reaffirm boundaries. It's not technically in orb with Saturn, but it is close enough. It's adjacent to Saturn enough to where this is also kind of a nice time to tell people no, to kind of reestablish ourselves. One ritual usually isn't enough. You can't just like do one ritual, one thing, and be like, problem solved. So it very much feels like the bookend to that Pisces ritual of calling things back in. Now that we've called ourselves back in, now that we've called the people into our lives, now we start setting up the structure, setting up the drive and the engine for the life that we want moving forward. Also, now that we're into like April, we're getting into the better astrology of 2026. The astrology of 2026 is a little janky, and spicy, but this is when things in the very least start to feel as if we get some progress that we can push along on our own. And so, this Aries new moon is kind of that heralding in that moment. Also, because of the way the moons are working currently, it's going to be happening just a few days before we go into Taurus season. Taurus season, Gemini season, and Cancer season are kind of the better seasons this year. They also do tend to be better just for the moon, because the moon in Taurus, the new moon in Taurus and the new moon in Cancer are both, there's an exalted moon and a domicile moon. So they do tend to be better times to do things. Um, so yeah, that is the season. I think kind of overall, it's going to be very up and down. Like I said, we have the conjunctions coming up. That Mars conjunction is really going to shake up stuff. Oh, I did miss one. Um, did I? Yeah, I did miss one. I moved right into the new moon with Aries. This is what I get for being dyslexic and not wearing my glasses. This is what the punishment. On the 14th, right before the new moon in Aries, Mercury then goes into Aries as well. Obviously, we're out of the shadow period already for, the Mercury retrograde, but this is when it's like the book slam shut. And we're like, all right, that's done. So this will be really nice. We'll get to move through the energy. Mercury and Aries, I do love. Will people be popping off? Yes. Will people be unguarded? Is this my domicile, Mercury? Yeah, it's me being mouthy and telling people things. Um, Can you believe as a child I often told family secrets in public and repeated what my parents said in private to strangers or to people they were talking about? Just very unguarded energy. However, this is the energy of honesty, the energy of people saying what they mean and, maybe showing their ass a little bit. This is also going to make people pretty reactive to the boundaries that you set with that new moon, but it will show who they truly are to you, which is a gift of its own in a way. Um, yeah, that is the energy. Like I said, it is going to be up and down, lots of spicy time, which is typical for Aries season. Um, but there is some really lovely energy for manifestation and spell work during this time. So if you do that type of stuff, I would encourage you to do that now, recognizing that we are hitting squares with Jupiter. But these squares are, to me, problem solving squares. It's when kind of care and comfort and um, the desire to kind of feel at home in a place kind of come up against who we are as people and how we actually fit in to a system or a dynamic. Squares aren't necessarily bad, and also without squares, we do not get traction. So a squareless chart can almost be as bad as any other kind of chart, because without a square, there's no resistance. And when life is hard and you don't have squares, you could really struggle to find a way to kind of push through difficulty. Just like having tons of trines can become a problem because we can become complacent. Um, anyways, so that is the energy for Aries season. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of energy of the universe probably pushing us off a cliff to get us moving if we're a little slow to pick up after the Mercury retrograde and the eclipses. But it's also an opportunity to be bold and to be brave and to try something new and to really push forward our dreams so that when kind of the fertile time of, Taurus season, Gemini season, and Cancer season hits, we have stuff already in the works. We have things to harvest and things to kind of show off and celebrate. But yeah, that is the reading for this. If you like my stuff, like and subscribe. Also, you can get private readings with me, um, and they are quite good. So you can always check that out on my website, which is the same name as here, or you can go DM me on Instagram. I answer those as long as you're respectful. Anyways, my loves, I hope you all have a blessed Aries season. I am excited for the passion and drive in it. Cautiously optimistic and a little terrified as to what Saturn and Mars are going to do to us, but we experience this conjunction every year. It's just always a new a new revelation of, restriction and chaos together. But that is it. I will see you all later. Have a lovely, well, for me right now, evening.